I think that will be a large party of okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, we are live. Are we good to start? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining this final and very special session of Ramadan Live. It may feel like it's ended so quickly, but this is in fact the final of more than 70 live sessions that we have broadcasted throughout this month. And on behalf of the entire Ramadan team, the entire Ramadan Live team, we are so grateful to you from all over the world for joining us on this program. Let me first start by introducing myself. I am clearly not Sheikh Yasser Qureshi. This is not Prophetic Paradigms. My name is Alia, and I have been working with a few others to bring Ramadan Live to you. In this session in particular, I will be moderating as we have a few guests present with us today. Usually I man the chat box with our dear brother Tariq, but today it will just be him on the chat box. So if you're joining us via the YouTube channel, please say hello to him. We have something special lined up for you today, as this is the last session, and we didn't want to end it as we regularly do. Also, Sheikh Yasser Qureshi, he has blessed us with more than 20 live sessions of Prophetic Paradigms, almost every single day of Ramadan. So we thought that we'd also give him something exciting in his final session. Let me give you an idea of what to expect today. It will be in 4 parts for about an hour, inshallah. And so we hope that you stay with us until the end. The breakdown of it is as follows. The first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to tell you more about Cambridge Muslim College, who we are, what we do, and the programs that we offer. And then we will be introducing somebody who, if you watched the video earlier today, he makes an appearance, and he is possibly someone that you may know. Please stay tuned for that. And then following that, we will be doing a special question and answer session. But it is not as we thought it to be originally. So if you have any questions about Cambridge Muslim College, the teachers, students, whatever you want to know about Cambridge Muslim College, this is the platform for you to ask your questions. And then finally, hopefully, we will end with a dua and some closing remarks from Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, the Dean of Cambridge Muslim College, and whose original vision is what led us to Cambridge Muslim College. So speaking of which, let me tell you a little bit about Cambridge Muslim College. We're an educational institution that has been around since 2008, over 10 years now, based in Cambridge, just outside. It's a modest building, but with lots of character. And I'm sure you have seen stained glass window that has been featured in a number of our beautiful videos released this month in Ramadan. A video is so beautifully made by our dear brother Tariq. Please keep him in your du'as. This entire Ramadan, it has been, he has contributed so much to the college. But that obviously is all. Our stained glass windows, our little college in Cambridge, that's all just on the surface. But what exactly is Cambridge Muslim College about? Why was it established? And what was it trying to achieve? And what has it achieved so far? And therefore today, I'm going to ask our panel of teachers who are here with me today to tell us more. But let me introduce them first. We have Sheikh Sahel Hanif. We all know him best from his tafsir, from his verse-by-verse tafsir of Surah Yasin that he has delivered with such gusto and passion. And as one of our testimonials mentioned. And honestly, we couldn't agree more. I myself have personally benefited so much from it. But a little bit more about Sheikh Sahel. He works on Islamic legal theory with a focus on the Hanafi School of Law. He received an MA and a PhD from the University of Oxford. His doctoral thesis, which is a early theory of early classical Hanafism, legal epistemology in the Hidayah of Burhanuddin Ali ibn Abi Bakr al-Maghinani, won the Boris de Gruyter Prize for its original study of Islamic legal epistemology, as it studies the interplay of rationality and tradition in a major work of legal commentary. I myself, Sheikh Sahil's PhD is found online if anybody would like to read it. I myself have downloaded it, but still have not had the chance to go through it. So for those of you who are interested, you may do some extra research on Sheikh Sahil. He was previously head of Arabic Sciences at Qasid Arabic Institute, and he has taught undergraduate classes on modern Islam and Quranic studies at the University of Oxford. Now, Sheikh Sahil really is quite an accomplished individual, mashallah. And of course, we have our teacher of prophetic paradigms, Sheikh Yasser Qureshi, who is, as you all know, our teacher with a wonderful smile every evening at 9:30 p.m. BST or 9:45 this past week. And yeah, I'm still thinking about that incredible session about trees. Anyway, let me tell you more about him. His research interests rest in two main areas. The tradition referred to as Ma'qulat, which is the Islamic rational sciences. And he also has a secondary focus on Western philosophical tradition. Sheikh Yasser has got an MA in medieval Arabic thought, and I believe has just completed his PhD in philosophical theology at the University of Cambridge. Sheikh Yasser, once your thesis is published, I'm sure you would like, I'm sure all of us would like you to share with us what you have written on and studied for all these years. Sheikh Yasser, we were meant to do a question and answer session with you, but instead we have invited you as well as Sheikh Sahil and inshallah Sheikh Abdul Hakim and more to be on today's session. So Sheikh Yasser, like as for a change, I would like to say welcome to today's session. And I hope you're not too tired having done these Ramadan live sessions for almost every day this Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. I realized I was on mute, so I've just unmuted myself. So Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. A great pleasure to be here, and an even greater pleasure to be here with my dear friend and brother, Sheikh Suhail. Really is, I think, for me, a perfect way to bring this series of lectures to a conclusion, because I think there's more blessings in doing this as a group. And of course, as you mentioned, one of the 11 shining stars that we have in our BA program, we've decided to bring one of them out here today. So,
alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So Sheikh Yasser, if you allow, let's get straight to it. Let me put the question to you. What is Cambridge Muslim College about, really? I mean, we have almost 100 people on the regular daily joining us every day for your sessions, and they are pretty much part of the family already. So please initiate us all into the family.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. And really, it's a great honor to just be here with everyone. In addition to the panel, those who are joining us from all different parts of the world. As you mentioned quite rightly, that as the family gets bigger, it's important that people get to know each other more. So it's my hope that everyone who's been watching online for this past month, that we can all meet in person at some stage soon. Either they can visit us in Cambridge or in one of our external programs where we travel all over the world and sojourn to the lands of Allah and the beauty that He's created. So hopefully there'll be ample opportunity for us to do that. The Cambridge Muslim College, as you know, was set up 10 years ago. And amongst its activities, we have a number of programs and activities, some of which, of course, we'll speak about as we go on, including the sorts of programs that we have at the college, in addition to programs that we have that are more public facing, external programs, which I'm sure you're going to tell us about shortly. Perhaps I can say a little bit about the diploma program that we run at the college, and perhaps a little bit about the research, and inshallah, our dear brother Sheikh Suhail can then hopefully let us know a bit more about the BA, as he is the BA director as well. The diploma program was set up 10 years ago. And essentially it's a 1-year rigorous diploma in contextual Islamic studies and leadership. And it's really geared towards graduates from Darul Ulum type seminaries in the United Kingdom. But in the past, we've had people from Azhar, for example, and other educational ma'ahid from all over the Islamic world. And what we try to do in the diploma program is we introduce these young ulama to subjects such as philosophy, science, history, literature, community development, the history of ideas, for example, so that they can become capable and confident leaders and ulama ready to serve not just the British Muslim community, but the wider community, because so many of our alumni are now spread out over different parts of the world. I think we have approximately 100 graduates after 10 years. It may sound like a small number, but we the selection process sort of narrows down the number that we can take. It really is an opportunity for them to engage a set of subjects that they may not have been able to have studied during their own traditional studies. It gives them one-on-one supervisions, teaching from world-class lecturers. For instance, a lot of the modules we draw from the expertise that's available at the University of Cambridge, and those lecturers then come and teach our diploma students, and they can oftentimes have supervisions with them, have their essays marked by them, discuss their essays with them. So over the period of these 10 years now, we've had, in terms of where our alumni have gone on to, we can, for example, see that we recently, inshallah, this year have one of our students, Sheikh Muhammad Qazi, who came to the college in 2014, I think it was, or 15, and he is just now about to start his PhD at the University of Cambridge after having completed his MST at Oxford. We have Ustad Talha Boscourt, all the way from Australia. He came to the college for a year for the diploma, and he's now about to begin his MST at Oxford also. We have Misbah, who I think was actually part of the same cohort as Sheikh Muhammad, and she is about to, in fact, she finished her MPhil in education at the University of Cambridge. Sheikha Safiya, who did her MA at SOAS, Izzuddin, one of our younger diploma members who came as almost like a gap year to the diploma, and I think he's finished his PPE at Oxford, and that's sort of those of our alumni have gone on to education. But we've got many of our alumni who are all in different parts of the world. Mufti Niyaz Hannan, who's all the way over in the States, for example. We have Talha all the way over in Australia. We have Sheikh Ghulam Muhyiddin, who's running a fantastic community project in Stoke. And there's so many. And I was, in fact, reading in one of our newsletters, and sometimes we forget the list of where everyone's gone on since they've been at the college. And I really couldn't believe, even having read all of this, that, the sorts of impact that they're going on to make in their communities. And of course, CMC is always a home for them. In terms of our research, we've had a research agenda at the college for a number of years, where we've had 2 research fellows who have been working on various problems of contemporary concern for Muslims. Most recently, we've had Dr. Yaqub Chowdhury, who's been working on artificial intelligence, for example, producing some really, really excellent work. Dr. Asim Islam, who's looked at consciousness and the theological implications of questions that are found in that particular area of study. Dr. Amal, as you know, you've been enjoying his classes on cosmology. He's been a researcher at the college focusing on that particular area. We're hoping that the next phase of the college will move towards engaging more contemporary philosophical discussions and debates. So really you can see that, with the diploma and with the research already, even without the BA and the external programs, there's a lot going on.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Thank you, Sheikh Yasser. I was wondering, Sheikh Sahil, could you possibly riff off from Sheikh Yasser Qureshi and speak about what's going on with the BA program?
Yeah, sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's a great honor and pleasure to share this platform with my dear colleague, Sheikh Yasser Qureshi, and thank you also for the wonderful introduction. Everyone's welcome to read the PhD. Don't know how interesting you will find it, but I'm very much open to all feedback, really, if you want to give it a shot and let me know what you think about it. So Sheikh Yasir spoke about really the bread and butter programs of Cambridge Muslim College right from the beginning, which was training people already who've studied classically, the ulama, in contemporary questions, and the research, which has been going from the beginning. 3 years ago, then the CMC started a new program, which really was a vision from the beginning. We managed to start it 3 years ago, which is the BA program in Islamic Studies. And the first cohort are finishing now in the next few months. The BA brings together both worlds, the both worlds that CMC has always been interested in, which is the world of classical Islam and the modern context in which we live. The BA offers a chance to students. We like to work with small groups to give a concentrated period of time, study, and attention. And so over 3 years, we give them a good chance to really think very carefully through these two worlds together and the different ways these two worlds speak to each other. And most importantly, what the classical offers in terms of frameworks, ideas, to really think carefully about the world that we're in today. And so the part of our program that's the classical Islamic studies, we call them our core programs. Students study classical Islamic law, Islamic theology, logic and legal hermeneutics, Qur'an studies, hadith studies, Arabic. And these subjects, we try to engage them in a very slow, careful, methodical, reflective way, inside and out. And what I mean by that is we study these classical texts very carefully, and we try to think carefully about the modes of thought that these texts are training us to think in. We also look at them from the outside, and we think about the historical development of institutions, texts, writers, and we take the students through a very slow program, which is very discursive, as we think carefully through the very real questions of the past and of today. I'll say it like that for now, and if I'm a bit vague, maybe Sheikh Yasir can jump in and add to this. In addition to this very careful study of classical Islamic thought, we then also have a number of subjects which deal with very contemporary forms of knowledge. So we have what we call contextual modules in social sciences, in Western philosophy, in Islamic history, philosophy of science, modern global politics, world religions, religious studies as a discipline, and religious experiences within the modern world. And so within this very slow, methodical exchange with classical Islam and with these contemporary subjects, we go through a period of a journey together as we train our minds and we train our thought, and our method is not dogmatic. We're not here to say these are the contemporary problems and these are the contemporary answers from classical Islam. It's more exploratory, and we ask students to look at the very difficult questions face to face, and we think through them together. That's probably the best way I can say. It's training thought in a very honest environment of open exchange. That's probably what it means to me personally the most. And maybe Sheikh Yasir can jump in if he wants to add something to this.
No, absolutely. I think what Sheikh Sahil is saying is really trying to train them in how for example, a faqih, a legal scholar, what's the thought process? How are they looking at problems? So if it's better that we're able to train them in ways that they can think as a theologian or as a legal scholar, so that they can approach problems and know how to tackle them, rather than just teaching them how to read the text, but didactically, in other words, without really understanding the text very well. So no, absolutely, what Sheikh Sahil is saying is it requires a lot of patience, of course, Sheikh Sahil, as we've seen over the last 3 years.
No, it does, and I think maybe our students could tell us the kind of patience it took when they take on the stage, I think, later on today.
MashaAllah, everything that you've said, I think it's incredibly relevant and necessary for our times today. And all of us from around the world, I can speak on their behalf, since I I've only been very newly involved in Cambridge Muslim College, and from afar, I am from Malaysia. From afar, we have been applauding the work that has been done at Cambridge Muslim College. Sheikh Sahel and Sheikh Yasser, could you please tell us what else is it that the college does? In the regular emails that we've been receiving, I believe it's training scholars and research as well, producing cutting edge research.
Mhm.
So please tell us more about that.
So, for example, right now I have a project that I'm involved in where we're looking at the life and works and the thought of the great late Ottoman scholar Ismail Galembawi. And Ismail Galembawi is someone who, he lived, you can say he's more toward the modern period than most scholars, and one of the last great scholars really of the Ottoman Empire. And he has ideas that we can really grapple with and try to understand the state of Muslim scholarship and responses to philosophical problems that were coming out of that stage. It would really allow us to see how complex questions, I mean, for example, one of the projects that we're working on is his thought on the notion of infinities, which we know was made famous by Cantor, and mathematical infinities, and do infinities have some kind of extra mental, in other words, do they actually exist in the world, and can they exist in the world, and what does that mean? And this is a real, as you can imagine, multi-layered, deep, complex discussion, which has found articulation in the works of many, many great Muslim scholars. And really, Galembawi, who's standing at toward the end of that tradition that we know, has some remarkable work on that. So, and also the fact that he's not really a very, very well-known scholar, yet his scholarly output is so immense. So again, the approach that we try to follow is one of patience. We're not really wanting to be satisfied with superficial work. To produce scholarly work takes time because multiple layers need to be unpacked. Each step of an argument needs to be unpacked, understood, and analyzed, articulated. So really, if we sum up sort of what, I guess, what we do in our modules is we're trying to understand how the great scholars of the past, how they constructed their thought. Al-Imam al-Ghazali, Al-Imam al-Razi, and Al-Imam al-Jurjani. And of course, Sheikh Sahel can say about fiqh, the great minds in the Hanafi madhab, for example, or generally the great fuqaha, how is it that they thought? And what is their, what were their methods? That's what we're really interested in learning. What were their logical methods? What was their epistemological framework? What were their assumptions? Now, it's important really, and I guess one of the major points, I guess, of our BA program is the fact that the Islamic sciences work as a system, and not just insofar as a particular science and its topics speak to other topics within one subject, but how all of the sciences form an integrated whole, and not how the modern world chooses to study subjects because it looks at subjects disparate, disconnected, and we don't really know how all this whole fits together. It creates cognitive dissonance. How are all these endeavors of human learning, how are they even speaking to one another? No one really is interested in that anymore because people are not systematic thinkers. Whereas Muslim intellectuality has always been systematic. And we try to do away with the boundaries, except insofar as we have different classes for students to take. But really the system that we're trying to get through to them is a systematic, is a holistic framework of thought. And inshallah, Sheikh Sahel can say more.
Yeah, no, I echo that very, very much. I mean, when we think through the fiqh together, we really do think of it as almost like a way of being in the world. It's a way of processing all manner of human questions, which we're arriving at through a careful study of legal texts. If I just give an example of at least my module on the BA, because it kind of, your question started with the research, but my module on the BA is my personal research lab. I mean, it's everything I'm thinking about is what I'm taking all the students through, on this journey that I found very enriching with them. We cover a full classical text of Islamic law over the 3 years, covering the full range of, if you like, classical questions of law. And we cover each of these very slowly, as Sheikh Yasser is saying, to really think about what all of this means. Sometimes classical jurists frame a question, but what they're really trying to teach you is not vomit and fasting or something, you know, just on the surface level, but they really are teaching you to think about how natural science and fiqh are meant to be interacting on a very subtle way.
Yeah.
Some of their questions about prayer and tayammum are on the surface talking about prayer and tayammum, but underneath that, they're talking about a very interesting pre-modern sort of social science, thinking about human practices, human needs, and the objectives of sacred law. So right from the beginning, as we start this purity and prayer, we're thinking about the most widest set of questions about being a human in the world, within the lens, first of all, of ritual law. We do that for a full year. During that year, we also have a series of historical lectures. In these lectures, we don't take it as an assumption we know what a school of law is, or you should even follow a school of law. We try to tackle every premise step by step. There's no premises which have to be assumed.
Sure.
What is a school of law anyway? What are the different angles this thing was looked at? Is it relevant anymore? How might it be relevant? What's happening in Britain today? What could be happening in Britain today, for example? So there's no assumptions that we are something, and now we're studying fiqh. Every premise is being questioned and discussed very, very carefully. That's just first year. Then the second year, we continue this sort of legal training within questions of, first of all, trade law and then family law. Again, in addition to studying, again, the classical conceptions of each of these, we have a series of lectures that go throughout in which we discuss the two very fiddly things when you think of trade law. One is what we call Islamic finance, which is how to use classical methods to fit into today's economy. But we also have a series of lectures that critique all of that because of the very problematic nature of the world economy, and that maybe Islamic law has a better way to think about human relations economically. Again, it's not my job to tell them be, you know, one or the other, but it's to make them fully aware in a very profound way of the questions that people will have to think about when thinking about trading within the classical framework. Family law was very, very fiddly again. Notions of family, what is family about? What are the fuqaha trying to convey? What's happening today? And then the third year, we again carry on with this legal reasoning and thinking, but then we deal with all the very complicated questions of the whole pre-modern world. The question that CNN are most interested in, the classical doctrine on jihad, hudud, courts, slavery. In each of these, we try to understand what was happening in the pre-modern world, what's changed in the modern world, what were the premises of each of these previously, what are the various debates about them today in an environment of open debate. So in the class, every premise is entertained. Nothing is shut down. But through the 3 years of training, we've really had a chance to think about almost everything when it comes to being in the world, and thinking about the question of being in the world informed by an ancient tradition grounded in the Islamic revelation. That's probably the best I can say about generally what my research is trying to do, and generally about how going through this with the course was very much a living, breathing investigation, if I could say it like that. I don't know, Sheikh Yasser, if you want to jump in on anything.
Beautiful. Makes me excited when I listen to that.
Alhamdulillah, tabarakallah.
Makes me excited as well. I would love to be a student of the BA, inshallah, one day. And it seems the BA is about really making people think, as you mentioned, Sheikh Sahel, being in the world and grounded in ancient tradition. But of course, we see the college is doing amazing things. But for a small group of students, well, I say small, but right now our diploma program has almost 100 graduates. But if you can tell us, how does this connect to the wider ummah? And how will it be able to how does it, and even the research, how does it benefit the wider ummah?
Would you like to go, Sheikh?
I think the question's for you.
So sometimes when people look at academic programs or programs where knowledge transfer is taking place, we can have the assumption that, oh, what's taking place is just ivory tower highbrow stuff, and it's not really of any importance to communities in general. But that's not the case. Why? Because the ideas that people come to adopt in their lives ultimately are born somewhere. They have their beginning point somewhere. And a lot of times what we'll find is that these ideas have their beginning point in university departments or in highbrow research centers. What we want to do is we want to articulate in the English language, because English more and more now is becoming a vehicle in which Islam is articulated. But unfortunately, because of we're still a very young community in the Western lands, unlike in the Turkic lands or the Asian lands or in Persia, in the Arabic speaking world, where in those regions, they've developed robust intellectual traditions. We haven't really been able to do that yet, not because for any other reason, but we're just a new community. So our desire is to want to contribute to making Islam a lived reality in the English language. And what that also means is to make it a robust intellectual reality, so that those ideas then can permeate down to, well, when I say down, it's not in any hierarchical order, but just as a symbol, if you like, but to go into communities then, so that public discourse is informed by balanced and reasoned understanding of our faith. Oftentimes, one of the things that we hear from students or visitors when they come to CMC and when they see the sort of work that's taking place is that, oh, we didn't know that those were positions or arguments or understandings that existed within a particular theological or legal tradition, for instance. But again, that's not a surprise, because we're in a very young age right now in terms of our being within the community. So I think that's one of the key areas, really, how research that comes out from places like Cambridge Muslim College will hopefully, in the long run, be something which impacts and influences dialogue, public dialogue as well. I think Sheikh Sahel,
yeah, if I can bounce off of that, I feel that so strongly. I've always felt that.
Yeah.
In that, what's missing most, again, thinking about us as Muslims in the West, is, again, it's a negative word, but I don't know the positive twist on ivory tower. Maybe tower made of something nice, like some halva or something, like a sweet tower. But the idea is, if there's no space for people who are already trained in their religion to cultivate learning, to develop themselves, and what happens is all of the discourse below that is a hampered, two-dimensional regurgitating of facts discourse.
Correct.
And unless we develop something called a religious leadership, which again, leadership is like a buzzword. If you leave leadership aside, even a space for cultivating learning in a thoughtful way,
correct,
at the top, everything below that suffers. And that's what I've always observed and felt, that what we missed the most in Muslim learning was just the space for being intellectual, the space for debate, challenge, and offering solutions without the fear that, oh, well, what are people going to say? If that can't happen, nothing comes down except the regurgitating of facts again and again and again and again.
Right.
And as time goes on, we will realize that regurgitation is leading us down a pathway of increased confusion and increased irrelevance as the world is going on. So I completely 100% bottom my heart agree with what Sheikh Yasser said, just on that fact. The fact that if we don't cultivate learning in a safe space, which is intellectual and committed and sincere, I think everything below suffers. And that below is not just in the UK, it's everywhere. Because people are always looking to leadership. Again, I don't like leadership because it's a buzzword, but people are always looking to scholarship, informed scholarship. And if they don't see it, all discourse below that is hampered. I'll just say it like that. This is the first thing. That's why I fully believe in what I'm part of, within the BA and within the research. Having said that, the other part of the question is, as I think we'll be coming on to shortly, is that the college isn't trying to just be an ivory tower. I mean, it understands the importance of that space and it's trying to cultivate it. But I think things like the Ramadan Live program, which we'll talk more about, but it shows that the college is very keen, I think, to disseminate in a very, as someone emailed me today, unashamedly, sort of from a Muslim space. We're not trying to hide ourselves within some higher language. We've been very raw, I think, in the classes we've had in this holy month, and people have felt that. I think we've not spoken as people, in a vocabulary of people trying to be high or elite. So the college is trying to cover all of these spaces, And I think off the back of what's happened this month, I think we're even more keen to support in filling those spaces. But it's just being aware that the programs we spoke about, I think we cannot do without them as an international community.
Correct.
And we're trying to disseminate that in a variety of ways, not just in this tower of halwa that we are occupying.
Can I just maybe add one point there to what Sheikh Sahel said, and just to reinforce exactly what he's saying as well, and to agree that Al-Imam Razi, the great Imam Razi, he's known as Fakhruddin, the one who we can take pride in, that what makes the articulation of Islam, let's say Sunni Islam, the strongest manifestation, if you like? Is it because they happen to be in larger number, or is it because we're more spread out all over the world? Right? He says it has nothing to do with that whatsoever. If Sunni Islam, as an example, is something we consider to be true, it's true by virtue of our arguments being stronger. So again, it's what Sheikh Sahel said as well, that it's that space for people to engage in arguments and discussions, not arguments as in shouting matches, arguments as in reasoned debate and discussion, and to see, okay, Bismillah, you can have whatever opinion you want, but you have to be willing to defend it then. And that's the key.
Okay, mashallah. Thank you very much, Sheikh Sahel and Sheikh Yasser. I think this is a good time to bring in somebody who has experienced 3 years of this learning environment. As Sheikh Yasser mentioned at the beginning, Shahriyar Hassan, who has joined us today, he is one of the 11 bright lights of the BA in Islamic Studies at Cambridge Muslim College, and in fact, he was part of the first cohort of the college. If you watch the video that was just released today, you would have seen him. He was very nicely engaging with the children and endorsing football as a career, mashallah. He is, to give you more information about Shahriyar Hassan, he is a graduate from Cambridge University in English Literature, and he has just completed the 3-year BA at Cambridge Muslim College, and he is now going to study philosophy at one of the most hugely prestigious institutions, which is at University College London. He's going to be doing an MA in philosophy there. Shahriyar, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. If I can ask you, what has been one of your most significant learning experiences at Cambridge Muslim College?
Yeah, sure. And firstly, thank you for the kind words and the introduction. And of course, it's an honor to be here representing the Cambridge Muslim College in this way. And a big assalamu alaikum to all the people who are tuning in and watching. And before I answer that question, if I might, I just want to add that I'm not sat here on any particular merit of my own. If I sat here, it's as a representative, let's say, of the other students who are on this course at the moment. And I just want to say to everybody listening that I do want to just make it very clear that the amount of effort and the amount of commitment that these young men and women have shown to take the time out in their lives to commit themselves to sacred knowledge in the way that they've done, that they have gone through so much, and they've done so much very, very selflessly as well. So everything I say, if it sounds pleasant and if it sounds good, I want that to reflect on that entire cohort. And anything I say which is misguided, you can know that's from me. And I do request everyone watching, and I really sincerely mean this, please, in these final days of Ramadan, please do make dua for all of those students who are currently studying, and because the effort that they've taken on their shoulders is monumental, and it's so significant, and they're doing it for the entire community. So please do take the time out to do that, to aid them, and to give them further strength and iman and so forth. In terms of learning experiences, as you asked, I mean, it's so much has happened in the last 3 years that I can't really do that justice in a few minutes, and I won't take much time in explaining that. But really, I'd say that, and there's so much I could say, but I'd say if anything, all of it eventually comes back to the experience that I've had of people in the last 3 years. Now, I mean, very quickly about me, I mean, I was not from a scholarly family. I was planning to go become a lawyer after university, and it was a big coincidence, maybe divine, divinely ordained that I encountered the men and women at Cambridge Muslim College and Sheikh Abdul Hakim and so on. And it's I've basically found that if you sincerely want to learn why it is we believe what we believe, then Allah opens those doors and He will take you exactly where He needs to take you. That's how I ended up at CMC, at the Cambridge Muslim College. It was as an amazing sort of experience and story. But one of the things that I've learned in those last 3 years there, and the major thing is that I came here as a young man who was basically committed to being a Muslim, but didn't necessarily know why. I heard all the catchphrases that, you know, the Qur'an is a miracle, but why? That the Prophet ﷺ was the perfect embodiment of virtue, and that we bless him every time we mention his name, but why? And so much more. There's so many questions I had. And in the 3 years I've been here, I've discovered so many of those answers, but most importantly I've seen is that the people in this college are the first and the real example I've seen of people who really embody the prophetic quality of service. And I mean men and women who are losing sleep. They are keeping time away from themselves, from their families, from their loved ones. They're missing out on the opportunities to make money. They're missing out on the opportunities to get married. They're sacrificing all of these dunyawi concerns because they really have been touched, and they really believe that this tradition that we are a part of is the truth, and that it is a beautiful, beautiful offering for humankind. And I've seen this in their actions. I've seen people who, if they wanted, they could be the center stage presence in any room they enter, but they never talk about it because they're humble. Their satisfaction is in serving Allah. Their satisfaction is in being sure that their akhirah is intact. They don't want attention from the world. And that's proof to me that what they're doing is driven by the deepest sincerity. And that's why I'm not going to talk to you necessarily about, about theology or about law. And I'm going to talk about what these things stand for, which is that they stand for a tradition which is designing and perfecting human character. And these are all things that I'd only ever heard, but in the last 3 years, they've become a reality for me, and I've seen it with my very own eyes. And that's why I want to carry on in this way. I feel like we have an enormous offering to give to the Muslim community. And what I've seen, and I'll end on this, is that obviously I could go on forever, and I could say so much about what I've seen and the people I'm sat with. I mean, again, what an honor to be sat with my teachers and the students as well, who I've mentioned. What I've seen is a truth, or coming to truth, of the Quranic ayah, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. That if you have taqwa of Allah, then He will teach you. And I've seen people who really, really live to embody this idea of having taqwa of Allah. We have such an enormous tradition of Quran, Hadith, theology, fiqh. We need to have the brightest and the best. I mean it. I've worked harder in this college than I've ever worked in my life. We need a whole team, a whole army of thinkers who are just really, really throwing their whole lives at it. And that's having taqwa of Allah. And then Allah takes care of us. And I've seen that in our young, and I've seen that in our old. And I'll end on this. It's just that I've just seen this happen. And I'm not anyone special. I came from a very ordinary family. I'm not from a scholarly family. And I've seen and experienced that, and it's affected my life entirely. And that's the real thing I've learned, and that's changed my life forever. So I want to extend a really massive thank you, and again, like a beautiful sign of respect and jazakallah to all of them, the teachers, the college, the staff, and to all the people tuning in who've been so good to listen. It really means a lot to me as just a 25-year-old who wants to commit to this. So that's my take home for everyone, that this is real, this is happening. Please engage us more, get in touch, because it's kicking off, and it's only going to go bigger from here. So I'll leave it at that. I'll hand the mic back to the rest of you, inshallah.
Shahriar, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that. And I think what you said has really resonated with many of us from all over the world who have been tuning into Ramadan Live. And I know that what the college is doing is incredibly complex, and it's in detail, but I feel like with Ramadan Live, many of us from all over the world have been given a taste from this cup. We have been given an exposure to just this tiny drop in the ocean. And I remember at the beginning of the month, Sheikh Yasser, as well as with Sheikh Yahya Rodas, all the teachers were talking about setting our intention at the beginning of the month. And I think that many of us from all over the world set that intention to go on this journey to improve our relationship with Allah. And the result of all of that was so much tawfiq in this Ramadan live program. And I mean, I genuinely am speaking from my heart, because working every day with Sidi Tariq and truly being able to benefit from all of this, it truly is a miracle from Allah. And it really is the product of everyone in the world, like all of our intention and all of our dua. And I guess this is why we are asking everybody from around the world to continue to support the college and all that it does. And yeah, I've just Sidi Tariq has just told me that this is a good time to move into the third part of this evening, which is to be involving the audience. We'd like to give a special shout out to those who have been joining us regularly for almost every session. We have Farah from Toronto, we have Arif Muhammad from India, and we have Anthony Green from Christchurch, New Zealand. If everybody here watching has not watched their testimonials yet, please do. It's on the Cambridge Muslim College website. It's on the YouTube page. Sidi Tariq has just told me that he's going to post a link right now. So Sheikh Yasser and Sheikh Sahel, if I may start first. This is a question from Amin. He says, does Cambridge Muslim College offer specific courses on Arabic that does not involve enrollment into the BA or diploma programs? And what is the timeline? What is the timeline for a student of Arabic with specific emphasis on the Qur'an? I'm guessing what is the recommended timeline of learning? So
Sheikh Yasser is the director of our Arabic program, so that definitely 100% is going right to him.
Well, I think, let's not forget that Sheikh Sahel was the director of Qasid as well. So, he comes with a stellar background. I think I opened this discussion in one of our prophetic paradigms gatherings, and we were speaking about a particular point in Arabic, and it just came to me that, well, perhaps if there's enough people showing interest, the CMC could open up an online program. So, I mean, I would say that everything is on the table right now, because I think we've been so overwhelmed as well with the response, and of course, Sheikh Abdul Hakim is here. Alhamdulillah. So we've been so overwhelmed with the response, and that's something that we're going to think about. Maybe if there's enough clamor from people, then I'd say we would be more inclined toward doing that. As for how long it takes, our Arabic program right now is a year's program. And we send our students who will come onto the BA to our partner institute in Marrakesh, the Center for Language and Culture, the CLC. And they spend a year there being trained in classical Arabic. So by the time they come to the college, they're quite prepared to take on a study of the subjects that they're going to find in the first year. So we often find sort of a year is a good time period to get grips with the language.
Thank you, Sheikh Yasser. Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh Abdul Hakim has just joined us. Thank you so much, Sheikh Abdul Hakim, for taking the time out to be with us here today.
I had to rush a wedding in order to be with you.
Allah. Inshallah, I hope everything went well.
Strange that people like to get married during Ramadan these days, but these are curious times. Lockdown Ramadan weddings after iftar. It's not the first one I've done.
Allah.
Thank you, Sheikh Abdul Hakim. I'm just going to do a brief introduction of yourself to those who don't know, who are tuning in from all over the world tonight. Cambridge Muslim College was the original vision of Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, who continues to oversee and contribute to its work. For those who don't know, Sheikh Abdul Hakim was educated at Cambridge, Al-Azhar, and London universities. He's currently the Sheikh Zayed Lecturer of Islamic Studies in the Faculty of Divinity at Cambridge University, and he's the Director of Studies in Theology at Wolfson College. He has published and contributed to numerous academic works on Islam, including director of the Sunnah Project, and he is a leading figure in interfaith activity, notably as one of the signatories of the Common Word Statement. Sheikh Abdul Hakim is one of the most influential Muslims in this world. And at Cambridge Muslim College, he is the Aziz Foundation Professor in Islamic Studies, and of course, the Dean. If there are any questions for Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad this evening that you want to direct to him, please please put them in the chat box, and Sidi Tariq will pass them on to us. Sheikh Abdul Hakim, we're just going to take a few more questions, and then we will hand over the session to you, inshallah. Okay. All right. Okay. Now this is a. Okay, I'm just having a look at the question. Right. So right. Okay. Okay. So somebody asked, would Cambridge when is Cambridge Muslim College going to implement a program that would take in international students? So those from all over the world can come to the college and benefit from the company of these amazing men and women. Sheikh Sahel, can I direct that to you?
Yeah, sure. So at the current moment, with our current BA cohort that we're just starting with, we've restricted the program to UK and EU citizens for purposes of processing the student visa. We do plan to open this up going forwards, and so we are very interested in, if you want to express your interest to us going forward. So all I can say at this current moment in time, it's an interest we have, and we'd like to hear from you. But at this current moment, the cohort that we've just finished and we're starting with, we've offered it to people who already have the right to study within the UK, which are EU and UK citizens. Do you want to say anything, Sheikh Yasser?
No, that's absolutely, yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is a good follow-up, but as quarantine and lockdown has made everything online, are there plans for Cambridge Muslim College to implement long distance online courses? And I think I'd like to say that this would be different from what we currently offer on our online learning platform. So Sheikh Yasser or Sheikh Sahel?
I mean, I guess we've just been so overwhelmed by the response. I remember speaking about a Ramadan live program 2 or 3 weeks before Ramadan, and here we are, a month, 6 weeks later, with the sort of response we've had, which really shows us. And I think, I'm under no illusions. The programs and the trust that people have is largely because of Sheikh Abdul Hakim and the college, and so we live off that, and that gives us an opportunity to be able to teach. So I think it's given us a lot of food for thought. And I think we've already started to have discussions about sort of ongoing programs that we can perhaps offer online now that there's a bigger CMC family to cater for. So absolutely.
Thank you, Sheikh Yasser. I'm going to direct this next question to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad. Sheikh Abdul Hakim's Ajaz has just asked in the chat box, what is the vision for Cambridge Muslim College for the next 10 years?
Well, alhamdulillah, I think that the programs that we've rather tentatively launched have now passed the pilot stage, and we know that we have a viable product. So inshallah, the intention is to be running the BA program for 3 cohorts of students simultaneously, which would be much more effective, a better use of our facilities, more economical and so forth. And we did find it very encouraging last summer when we were filtering the applicants for the new cohort of the BA to see the extraordinary numbers of applicants, but also the very high standard of many of them already with very good first degrees. I think that probably the standard was higher than, say, University of Cambridge applicants for a comparable course. It's very encouraging to see the level of commitment and religious balance and educational nous that many young Muslims in their late teens, early 20s now have. So we really want to have that happening. But of course, we are somewhat bursting at the seams in our small buildings in Cambridge. And ideally, we would like to expand. We have a piece of empty land at the back, which, alhamdulillah, we own, which is one of the last building opportunities really left in central Cambridge. We're really fortunate to have it. So the plan really is to build a state-of-the-art new college facility there, which would accommodate 80 to 100 students, a proper library for 20,000 books or so, a refectory, accommodation for academics. So then we'd really be, I think, a significant feature on the Cambridge skyline.
Thank you, Sheikh Abdul Hakim. Thank you very much for that. So I would just like to say once more that this is quite a big moment for us. Ramadan Live was an incredible success. It was a huge success, and we have now come to the final session. This session today was mainly to help you understand more about Cambridge Muslim College. If there's anything that we have missed or anything that you would like us to add, if there's anything that we've missed out or anything that we have said wrongly or done wrongly throughout this month, please forgive us. And another thing is that if anybody would like to add anything, you can either leave them in the chat box, or you can again email courses@Cambridge Muslim College. We have to bring this session to a close now tonight. Before I pass on to the teachers, I would just like to say a very, very big thank you to everybody who has supported Ramadan Live and who has supported Cambridge Muslim College in this time. So just to name the teachers, we've got Sheikh Najah in Egypt. We have Sheikh Hisham. We had, of course, our wonderful teachers, Sheikh Yasser and Sheikh Suhail, who are both joining us from the UK. And we have Dr. Abdullah Rothman, who joined us almost every night, similarly with Sheikh Yasser from the UAE. And we had Dr. Samer, who gave us 6 amazing sessions, 10 hours worth of content on Surat Al-Kahf. We hope you keep all of them in your du'as. Dr. Amin Nawaz, who has given us incredibly inspiring sessions on Islamic heritage and culture. She was streaming from Tübingen, Germany. Sheikh Yahya Rodis, all the way from the UAE. Dr. Mariam Shaybani from Canada, and Emil Durakovic from Denmark. So before we wrap up the session and before I hand over to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, is there anything that you would like to say, Sheikh Suhail or Sheikh Yasser?
Yeah, I think from my point, I just want to thank everybody. It was really, for me, it was amazing to connect with everybody, and with this exploration which we had of Surat Yasin. It was very touching to see how many people were keeping up and following the class. And I just want to say that I feel we're all connected. I feel we're on this journey together. And inshallah, we will be working on more programs to follow up. And I hope this to be a very long-term connection that we will have together. So just my thanks very much to everyone.
No, and I echo that completely. Again, Tariq for setting it all up, yourself for helping him with that. All of the teachers from all different parts of the world, Australia, UAE, Germany, the US, Egypt, and just really, again, so honored to have been a part of this and to have been able to just share some thoughts every evening. I'm looking forward to engaging you all again, hopefully at some stage soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Sheikh Abdul Hakim, do you have please say a few words as we close this, as to end Ramadan and also to end Ramadan Live.
Ya Allah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. It's always a rather wistful time when we say Al-Wada' ya Ramadan, and we realize something of what we're going to be missing, and also I think appreciate the way in which we've been inwardly reconfigured. And this has been probably the most remarkable Ramadan of my life. It's my 41st Ramadan, I've just realized. But I don't recall one that has been so peculiar, but also so intense, in the sense that this little institution, Cambridge Muslim College, has been kind of speculatively fishing. That's the nature of the internet. You put material out there and you seed the web with various hints and little trailers and just see what the response is going to be. It is like fishing. You don't really know what you're going to get. So we put our little worm in the water, and what we got was this kind of enormous swordfish, I think, that we're struggling with a little bit. And there's a lot of data that needs to be processed, and a lot of donations which are still coming in, alhamdulillah. And also the realization that there is a lot of thirst for knowledge. People don't just want to go through the motions in religion, but even though this has been a strange Ramadan in many ways, they want to learn and learn more and more, and they're starting to get the taste of sacred knowledge. And it's been interesting for me, because when this is my 40th year as a Muslim, just celebrated my 40th Muslim birthday quite recently, and to see in that kind of arba'in the transformations that have happened, and some obviously dreadful things have been happening to the Ummah and in the Ummah, but also, when I first became Muslim, it was very difficult to find a scholar who could speak any kind of English. And when invariably he did, it would be kind of based on the urf and the ada, the customs of a faraway place. And it was very difficult for me to locate myself. But now the community has moved on, a generation has passed, and we're seeing not just this amazingly promising, quite unbelievable in some cases, cohort of new students applying to CMC. And we had maybe 60 applicants who got through to that stage, and we were only able to take slightly less than a third of that, simply because of capacity. That's really encouraging for the future of the Ummah, but also to see that the community has developed a discourse and a narrative in the English language, which actually shows that it's possible to be in continuity with spreading branches of the Ummah that goes back 1,441 years to its point of origin, and connects us to the roots of the Qur'an and the Sunnah in an authentic way. You can do that and also make sense in the context of a modern European language, and be taken seriously by the wider world of scholarship, of philosophy, to engage with that. And that's, I think, been a very important discovery. And we've been proving it not just rhetorically, but also in detail, because our BA, which is now something that has shown its worth and has been tried out on our hapless guinea pig first cohort of students, shows that it is possible to have a first-rate, world-class academic curriculum that's accredited by a significant Western seat of learning, that at the same time can claim to be faithful to the parameters of our religion as set forth in the ijma' of the Ahl Sunnah. And that's a lesson that a lot of people haven't really taken on board yet. They think it's either or, but in fact, it's possible to inhabit both worlds and to be amphibious. If you're a new Muslim or a Western Muslim, generally, you're a kind of amphibian. And I think that should be treated not as a kind of tension, but rather as an enrichment. It's just interesting to inhabit a variety of worlds and to see how Islam, with the extraordinary strength of the monotheistic idea, is able to make Islam capable of jumping this gap into this new discursive space, this new linguistic world, the philosophical and legal terms that we're now using in the English language, and to make Islam native to that discourse. And that's a very, very exciting narrative. And it's also good to see with our CMC tours how many people are inspired by the CMC vision from outside the UK, and often from the traditional Muslim world, from the Far East and from the Middle East, people who find the often state-curated discourse in their own countries a little bit dry and uninspiring, and they're westernized enough, not necessarily in a bad way, to want to know how to understand Islam fully and to be fully part of it, but using some kind of contemporary categories that just make sense to them given the place that they're in culturally. So that also has given me hope that we can be not just a little seminary for training up a few faith leaders for modern British ethnic minorities, but can have actually a global role and can reach out and can make a difference to the global argument about Islam and modernity, Islam and the West, tradition, and all of those issues. Because whether we like it or not, the relationship between our religion and the modern reality is the big issue of the day, maybe along with climate change and now this wretched virus, but we're never far from the headlines. And I think that CMC, therefore, is not a marginal institution, but despite its smallness, is developing a discourse that is academically credible, Islamically authentic, and can show that there can be not just a dialogue, but a place where one can be authentically part of both worlds without being treasonable to either. I find that personally very exciting. But of course, as we move into the future, education is an expensive and long-term investment. Many communities have recognized this, and the Jesuits and many Jewish communities and so forth have poured enormous resources into developing their excellent institutions for guaranteeing the future of their communities. And I think that the Muslims now are starting to realize that this crisis that we're in globally as an ummah can only be overcome through relevant leadership, and that in the Western world, it's simply easier to generate that than in most Muslim countries at the moment, which are under a kind of political lockdown in many cases, and simply the ulama are not able to develop things independently of government surveillance and interference. So alhamdulillah, I think we're strategically located in a very important place in Cambridge. And I've been very encouraged by, as I say, the students, by the reception in the wider ummah, by the ulama's prayers for us. Alhamdulillah, I don't think we're regarded as an outrage by the consensus of the ulama. I think generally their response has been cautiously respectful, and the students and the academics themselves, alhamdulillah. So it's really a very interesting crucible or a laboratory for some of the big questions of our age. And generally the results, I think, have been very encouraging. And I hope that many people out there in our kind of world of CMC followers and people who feel that they benefit from us will be encouraged by this and regarded as a very future, hopeful sign presaging a good future for the ummah, inshallah, that these knots can be untied and these difficulties can be overcome, and inshallah, with the energy of the new generation and sincerity, the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this ummah has a very bright future, because monotheism is the strongest, most powerful idea in human history. Nothing comes near to it. Islam has it in the clearest and most intelligible and most perfect and absolute form. We have our forms of worship intact. We have a traditional vision of how the family and society should work intact. Alhamdulillah, we're in an extraordinarily strong position. And we had a number of not just Zoom weddings, but Zoom shahadas through the Cambridge Mosque this Ramadan, which just goes to show that the religion is still alive and dynamic and expanding. And despite the problems that is so often experienced in representing it and the deliberate misrepresentations, alhamdulillah, if you find a willing, open-minded audience, Islam spreads very quickly, as it's always done in the past. So inshallah, we're an institution not just of ilm, but of da'wah as well. But in order to keep this going and to turn this corner for the ummah, of course, it doesn't come cheap, and we have volunteers, but we need to pay the salaries, although our ulama in-house are natural ascetics, so they do need to pay their electricity bills, and so we try to do things professionally, but we do need those who are inspired by the CMC and have watched our videos and followed our courses actually remember us when they're making their sadaqah. And I hate begging, and I'm not the kind of Sufi who readily whips out his begging bowl. I don't like it at all, but there's tremendous reward for enabling the new generation of leaders to take over, because with a few really good transformative leaders in our communities, the communities themselves can be transformed. There's no more important investment. And I don't think anybody who's given money to CMC ever has actually regretted it. Alhamdulillah, the promise has been fulfilled. 10 years of continued growth academically, intellectually, institutionally. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, more years to come with your dua, inshallah, and of course with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and husn al-zann of the ulama of this ummah around the world. So inshallah, in these dying hours of Ramadan, inshallah, not just will people remember us in their zakat and their sadaqah, but also in their prayers, because I'm a great believer in the power of prayer, particularly in these very blessed times. So if you're not able to support us financially, or you've already done so, please do raise up your hands and make a dua in one of those beautiful, clear moments that we get, inshallah, towards the end of the fast, when it seems that there's a clear channel between you and the Almighty. Just make a dua for us, even if it's a short dua, because I think it's through the dua of the ummah and the pure-hearted of this ummah that the future of CMC is going to be assured, inshallah. So bless you all. May Allah accept your fasting and give you a joyful Eid, inshallah, and make you and your families, your loved ones, your neighbors healthy, inshallah, carry you all safely through this epidemic and through to the good times to come, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum wa taqabbala siyamakum wa salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Shaykh Abdul Hakim, for that. I just want to end this session by thanking you, Shaykh Abdul Hakim, for the vision of Cambridge Muslim College, for all our teachers who have given up so much time teaching us this month, and to you, all of you watching from all around the world, for two reasons. Number one, for joining us live or catching up later, for engaging your questions, your support, for your du'as. And number two, for your very, very generous donations. We are so incredibly grateful. Thank you. May Allah accept your contributions and raise you and our little college so that we can all come together close to Allah and to follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, alhamdulillah. Forgive us, please, again, once more for anything, for not being able to answer your questions, for not being able to engage with you in so many ways. Please keep in touch with the college. Sidi Tariq, I believe, will post a link in the chat box to sign up to our mailing list, so you may keep updated with everything that's happening in the college. Inshallah, with everything that we have planned for you in the future, you will be the first to know if you sign up to that mailing list. We want to take the legacy of Ramadan Live and the impact that it's had and carry on somehow. And thank you so much for helping us do that. I end this by asking you to subscribe to us on social media. And Shaykh Abdul Hakim, if you can just make a lead us in dua just to officially close the entire session.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وعصمة أمرنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم تقبل صيامنا وقيامنا وقعودنا وسجودنا وتقبل تلاوتنا لكتابك المعظم يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنا أمسينا منك في نعمة وعافية وستر، فأتمم نعمتك علينا وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا عبادك وبنو عبادك وبنو إمائك، ماض فينا حكمك عدل فينا قضاؤك، نسألك بكل اسم هو لك سميت به نفسك أو أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك، أن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا وجلاء أحزاننا وذهاب همنا وغمنا، وأن تجعل الحياة زيادة لنا من كل خير، وأن تجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. آمين.
Thank you so much to Shaykh Abdul Hakim, to Shaykh Yasser, and Shaykh Sahel, to Shahiriyar for joining us today. And thank you to you for joining us from all over the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.